Welcome to the Service MVP podcast. And my name is Joe Crisara, America's service sales coach. And we have with us today Mr. Seth Ure, and he is with GoodLeap, which is the gift of affordability that he gives contractors every single day. Seth, welcome to our program. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, Joe. It's a lot of
Did I
fun.
pronounce your last name right, Seth?
You can call me whatever you want. It's
That's fair
Ure,
enough.
but I have family members who disagree about pronunciation, so you did just fine.
That's good. Well, I tell you what, I have the same thing. I don't care. Just call me. I don't care if you call me what you pronounce it right. Seth, let's go over a little bit about the. You work at GoodLeap, and you're one of the top representatives. And I have my own connections there, but definitely your name just keeps popping up all over the place. Sounds like you're really digging to make connections with contractors across the country. How's it been going for you? How's your career been working with GoodLeap? How are you enjoying your job? And telling me some of the rewarding things that you get out of this job, Seth.
Yeah, I had a boss a long time ago. I worked at Daikin for about 6 years, and one of my bosses there was like a Wharton grad, and he consulted for Bain for like 10 years. And he said, if the only thing you're getting out of your job is a paycheck, you're getting cheated. And I've really taken that to heart, and I've lived that way. And so GoodLeap has helped me in the sense that I get a lot more than a paycheck, right? Like I get the responsibility to manage people. I get the opportunity to interact with lots of interesting people like you, interact with lots of contractors. So what's the Emerson quote? Every man is my superior in some way, and in that way I can learn from him. And I just think we have a job where we get to talk to a lot of people, and it's awesome because you talk to people, and I'm always surprised at the things I learned when I'm talking to people and just listening to what they have to say.
Well, I would say your boss had a lot of wisdom, and so that is
Yeah.
that's a good quote. I had a chill down my spine when you said that. It's amazing. I'm sure listeners are going to have that too. So you knocked it out of the park. A sharp single up the middle on your first few minutes here. Uh, let's go a little bit about the need for the financial aspect to assist the consumers to give them the gift of affordability, which I hate to use the word, but the word financing, right? Which is
Yeah,
that's on
yeah.
the table. But tell us a little bit about today, why it's more important today to be able to offer financing to all your clients, as opposed to back in the day where it was kind of an afterthought. People did it just to see if they could like pick up a sale here and there as an
Yeah.
afterthought. Tell us why it's so important today.
I had a contractor who told me that financing is the one F word that contractors don't like using. And but I think it's hilarious. Everybody who's listening to this has experienced what happened over the last 3 to 4 years, which has been one price increase after another. I don't care what industry you're in. Everybody sees prices are up like crazy. Take an example, let's say HVAC industry. I know you have a lot of HVAC contractors listening to you. 4 years ago, the average price of a base efficiency HVAC system across the country, nationwide average, $7,800. Okay. They're projecting by the end of 2024, that number is going to be over $15,000. So we're talking about nearly doubling in 4 years, right? And we're not even out of the woods yet because we have refrigerant change, regulatory changes coming. There's still stuff coming, right? We're not all the way out of the price increases. And so when you consider that, you think, wait a second, 10 years ago, that ticket was $3,500. 4 years ago, it was $7,800. In the next 9 months, it's going to be $15,000.
Well, when you do our program, Seth, that here at Service MVP, the average sale, listen to this, is about $28,000 to $32,000.
Oh, my goodness.
Because the reason is when you work the Daikin or the ductless solutions, when you start saying that's the future of HVAC, it's not just the price increase, but it's the innovation. To me, the most premium solution is everybody gets a personal heating and air conditioning system in every room of the house. So that's going to cost 79,000 for some of those solutions. You're probably going to settle at something, or it might be a hybrid between that. So definitely with the new innovations that are being financed, it's not just the equipment, it's everything, plus the service memberships. So it's all that kind of stuff that comes with it. That I'm saying you're right, 15,000. It's being very conservative. I think you're probably going to see 18, 20,000 with the average person, but with the most premium companies, it's going to be at that 32, probably 36,000 very quickly.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
I visited a Tesla dealership this last week, not that I'm necessarily going to buy a Tesla, but I was curious, right? So I was talking to the salesperson, and they can take the tax credit of $7,500 right off the top of the purchase. So they have a
Nice.
Model Y, right? There's a Model Y, and it's got 3 rows. I have 5 kids, so I'm like, what's the biggest Tesla, you know? But it's got 3-row seating. Do you know what the price, the base price of the Tesla Model Y after the tax credit comes off the top? $32,000, exactly what you just said. So the
Isn't that
question,
crazy?
how many Tesla Model Ys would they be selling without financing?
Well, I tell you what, I bought 2 Teslas. So I'm uniquely qualified to tell you that it's the easiest. It's the easy. It's like buying a Tesla is the easiest $100,000 you're ever going to spend. For me, I got the
Yeah.
X Model X and the Plaid and everything like that. So, but it's like, yeah, just give us $100 down and get pre-approved. Just give us your social security number and we'll get pre-approved. I was very lucky during the pandemic. I got my interest rate at 2.1%.
Oh
Almost like
my
they gave me
God.
that. They gave me that
Basically
money.
free, yeah.
It's basically, I'm like, that's free, and I'm like, hell yeah, $100 down, and all of a sudden they said, hey, your car is here. What? It's in your front yard. What? And then it's crazy. But you know what? The financing. If they asked me to come up with $100,000, I would have been like, well, I got to pontificate on that
Yes.
forever. Like I'd still be
Yeah.
thinking about it now even. But when they said that it's 2.1 financing, or the monthly payment would be this, and that's what it would have came out to. The monthly payment was super affordable. So I'm
Yeah.
like, huh, it's like I'm already wasting that much money on my current vehicle, getting the brakes done and everything else like that. I might as well.
Yeah.
I mean, truthfully, it didn't make sense financially, but truthfully, I'm done with the hassle. I want something more simple. And when I got one, then my wife got envious and she got one next year.
Of
So
course. Yeah.
it's like, they make it super easy. Give us the
They
$100
do.
down and we'll get the rest thing going. I think it's a real good example of that model. And
Yeah.
whether you like a Tesla or not, I think all the car
Oh, yeah.
dealerships have figured out that the average car is going to cost 40,000 or whatever kind of a thing. You might as well
One more
offer.
note. I asked the salesperson, I said, how many of the base models do you sell at that $32,000? And he said, almost none.
Hmm,
Everybody buys one of the upgraded models. Why do you think
hmm.
that is? Because it ends up being about $15 to $25 more a month when you spread that payment out. I think now I wonder if a homeowner who has an option to buy a fully variable speed system with multi-head with a couple different mini splits on there and a full 5-inch media filter, full home filtration system, are they more likely to get an upgrade when it's only $15 to $20 more a month?
Well, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
I'll give you the short answer on that. Seth, and so I think we're on the same page. Man, you're like a brother from another mother. This is like I feel like I'm with somebody I should have known for years, but and now I will. So that's great. Seth, let's go over let's pivot if you don't mind. I think I think the gift of affordability says it all. If you're hesitating on this, if you're out there in the field selling things, it shouldn't be something that you throw in at when you're scrambling to get the job. Like, oh yeah, how about if we finance it? It's like, no, I'm good. You're going to get that negativity from the client because they're going to say, if you could have financed it, why didn't you offer that to me to begin with? So the mark of a bad service professional, I feel, is somebody who scrambles to offer that as an afterthought rather than somebody who makes it the primary offer. Let's talk a little bit about that best practice.
Yeah.
Number one, putting it in your software. So what are some of the things that you can do to make sure that would you recommend, number one, that it is the primary offer, or you think it should be something we offer as a secondary thing? Let's go ahead and talk about that a little bit.
I think if you consider the fact that only 5% of the country has more than $15,000 in savings, and if you consider the fact that only 8% of the country is making over $100,000 a year, and 2/3 of them are living paycheck to paycheck by their own admission. So to me, if I just look at my average homeowner, I should be offering financing every single time because I'm going to be right 95% of the time. And the
Mm-hmm.
people who have the money, guess what? They have no problem telling you they have money. I'm
Yeah,
going to
what
pay cash for this. They're
yeah, what
not.
would it take just to buy? If I wanted to just write a check, what would it take? Well, if I said it was 36,000, what would happen then? Yeah, I would just do it then. All right. So forget the financing. But
Yeah,
if you offer it primarily, I think to me it shows that the person who's giving the solutions has put thought into this to make it as comfortable for the customer as possible. Is that a good way of putting it, Seth? What do you feel about that?
yeah. I mean, I think that's absolutely right. I also think that every person listening to this podcast has had an experience where they rolled into a really nice neighborhood, went to a big home, and the people had no money, and they might not even gotten qualified for financing. And they've also had the opposite experience where they went to a home where they really were kind of wondering if these people could afford it. and the people paid them in $100 bills. So the lesson is stop prejudging your customer. Don't assume that you know who has money and you know who doesn't, or who needs financing, who doesn't. If you just assume everybody needs financing, you're giving them options. They can tell you no. Should always leave with that financing option.
You know, and when we here at Service MVP rank the priority score of a client, financing puts it at the top score, because financing provides more resources, financial resources, than a credit card normally does, and that your checking account has the least amount of resources, most likely, and
Yes.
cash is very minimum resource. So if I look at somebody's going to say, I'll just pay cash for this thing, I'm like, oh great, this guy doesn't have any money, so he's probably how much money he probably thinks was 5,000 in cash. That's not gonna cut it with that $15,000 even. So really, you can make a case that almost 100% of the people would need some financing to get them over the hump. Because if you had to say, what's the expectation of the consumer based on what they see online, and what's the reality when the salesperson gets out there, that's always the sticker shock, right? Like the car's advertising, hey, get a new car for like, $18,000 for Chevy something or whatever. And you go in there, it's like, where's that Chevy? Oh yeah, the one that you want is like 42,000. Oh, okay. Well, what happened at 18,000? Well, that's the base model. You want to go with that? It's got AM radio or whatever, whatever they got on that one. Yeah, it's like that's like the bait and switch that they. But seriously, I think the reality is that consumers think it's probably 5,000, like you said there, but the reality is the 15,000 or the 30,000. So you should have it just to make sure you're bridging that gap, so that people don't feel like because truthfully, here's how I felt when I went to car dealers and they just threw the full price at me. If I ever seen that, I'm like, holy crap, I am stupid. I thought that. So it makes the self-esteem of the consumer lower,
Yeah, that's a great point.
because you're like, oh crap, I thought it was going to be 7,000. I didn't know it was going to be like 29,000 or whatever. I'm just then they feel stupid. And I tell you what, Seth, when somebody has low self-esteem, do you think they want to treat themselves to something really good? Well, tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think oftentimes, like I always make this comparison of, if you've ever been in a grocery store checkout line and there's someone in front of you whose card gets declined, what do they always say? They don't say, I spent all my money on cigarettes, now I can't afford food for my family. They don't say that. They say, my bank must have screwed something up. There's some fraud on my account. They will never tell you, because they don't want to feel stupid, and they're still super embarrassed. And heating and cooling, plumbing, electrical, these are mandatory must-have services. You don't get to choose about whether you buy food or whether you live in a home that's air conditioned in Phoenix, right? That's something you have to have. And you're putting this homeowner in a position where they feel stupid. They don't have the money, and they don't want to tell you that. They don't want to admit that. People will very rarely just admit, I don't have the money. But what will happen is they will invent about 1,000 smokescreen objections to cover the fact that they don't have money. And they'll say, I'd like to get more bids. I'd like to talk to my wife. I'd like to do more research. Underneath all of it is, I don't have the money. And if you can solve the money problem up front, and I'll tell you a really fast, easy way to do this, right? This is a great sales best practice is, hey, Mr. Smith, I've given you a lot to think about. In 3 minutes, we can get a free sneak peek into which programs you qualify for. It's not going to touch your credit. It'll probably make it easier to make a decision. Want to go and do that really quickly? With GoodLeap, it's a soft pull.
Let's just try to get a little quick commitment to the payment program that'll make it affordable before you even show them the price.
Exactly. I'm just looking, and here's the numbers. We pulled the numbers on this, right? If a person applies for financing and gets approved, 81% of them move forward with the project. So it's
what? I agree. That's why when we answer the phones, we try to ask people, so how are you going to be investing in this today? You're going to use a low interest bridge loan, our low payment bridge loan. You're going to use a credit card, or you're going to use a check when you eventually make the purchase. And they go, I'm probably going to use that bridge loan. Well, can I go ahead and send you a soft credit pull, which would be when you have any impact on your thing. So we do the same thing, even on answering the phone. Here's what we found, Seth. Would you believe this? If you offer that ability to get a pre-approved before a guy comes out there, 37% of people will actually do that. Do you believe that? If they offer on the phone even? So then if you did it on the phone, that same thing, and then the salesperson does the same thing, pretty much the consumer gets the idea like, I guess that's just how we do it here with this stuff. That's just a normal way of doing it, right? You kind of
Exactly.
normalize the part of it, the program you're talking about there, right?
Yeah, yeah. You have to give people permission to take out financing because they might have these preconceived notions in their mind about how that's irresponsible or they should just be paying for this, or if you can't afford it, you shouldn't buy it. But the reality is they can't afford it. So you have to normalize it through saying things like, 85% of our customers go with one of our standard programs because it's so much easier. I mean, the takeaway is people will buy the best they can afford. People will
But
buy the best they can afford.
I really like what you're saying there, Seth. And one of the things I'm seeing here when you're saying that is that you're anticipating the needs of the client. Number one, to be able to find the resources financially for them. But number two, you're preparing them for the fact that there will be a monthly payment, or it will be a program where we're going to give you that money and give you the job. Make sense? So I think
Mhm.
a lot of people are like, "Oh, I'm gonna have to go to my, we can't do this project. It's going to cost us too much money." And truthfully, I can't tell you this, Seth. After shopping for heating and air conditioning services myself here in Playa Vista, California, I
Mhm.
tried to get people to say, what do you got for me on a payment? A payment like I'd be like, oh, gee. Like they acted like I was pulling their teeth to get the service provider to offer it to me. I'm like, don't you have financing on this? It's like 39,000 we're going to spend. I did ductless in my entire house. I
Oh,
took out
wow.
the ducted system, put in ductless. I won't say the brand name or anything like that, but truthfully, and I wanted it that way, right? And I said, well, they're going to go, that's going to cost a lot of money. I'm like, dude, can you finance it? Oh, I have to check and see what we got, right? They were unprepared in a way. Does that make sense? So I
Yeah.
would say the vast majority, and you probably know this because, if you looked at it, Seth, can you give me some statistics? How many people are using this as the primary offer, as opposed to people who are like act like it's a burden on the contractor? How many people are more like really set up for this? If you looked at all the contractors in the country,
Um,
versus you'd be, if you did this, you'd be in a select group. I'm saying, what would the percentage be of people who actually offer financing as the
yeah.
premium, as the primary offer, would you say?
Let me answer that with this statistic right here. The top 10% of all contractors are funding 90% of all finance jobs.
I guess that says it right there.
So the
The
question
top
becomes,
10% finance all
yeah,
of 90% of all the sales are
yeah.
by
So who's
10% of
are
people.
they big because they're offering financing, or do they offer financing because they're big? And I think it's pretty obvious they got big by offering financing, you know.
That is true. That is true. Yeah. So if you're saying, how do these companies? So whenever you say like, I remember I was in a room with, we have our True Grit, our event we have. we have we had 5 contractors who grew from 0 to $40 million, start up to 40 million in 5 years, and
Holy cow.
all of them use financing as the primary offer. Now, I'm not saying it's the only reason,
Of
but it
course.
is an integral component that says I'm not going to grow to 40 million in 5 years unless I can make sure consumers can afford my solutions. Because you don't get there by doing nickel and dime jobs. You get
Mhm.
there by making sure you're doing the big ones. So you got to hit a home. It's like baseball season's coming up, right? Getting dribble one back to the pitcher and he fumbles the ball and you get an error. That's one way of getting on base. But you know what? Hitting the ball out of the park with the bases loaded it makes a lot more runs and it makes you win the game. Does that make sense there? And this is very similar to what you're talking about in finance. You're going to hit a lot more home runs when you've got the bases. In a way, you're loading the bases with the financing. Is that a good analogy? What do you think of that?
That's a great analogy. In fact, I was training a group of territory managers who worked for some distributor out in Georgia. And there was one of them who had just started 3 weeks ago. And I did my training, and he came up and he's like, what you said about people not offering this is so true, because I had to replace my HVAC system and I had to call 3 different contractors before one of them finally offered me financing. And I said yes, because I couldn't afford it. So to extend the analogy, it's almost like, look, if you're not offering financing, you're always on deck, but you're never actually up plate, because
Mm,
people cannot buy if they don't have the money. You're never going to take a full swing at the ball as it comes to you if they cannot even afford it, right? So in order to get even up to the plate where they can even make a buying decision and say yes, you have to give them the money so they can say yes.
mm. Yeah, exactly. I think probably, 15% would have $30,000, or maybe even less. Probably 5% would have thirty
Yeah.
thousand dollars in their account, but 100% would have 297 in their account, or whatever. Does that make sense? Like, because
Yes.
you're because you can make the case. You could say you're wasting money on utilities, you're wasting money on repairs, you're wasting money on the price increase that's happening. Those are so you balance out the wasted money there. It used to be like, how can we show finance? How can we show that this system will pay for itself? Well, it's hard to say that $30,000 is never going to pay for it, but it's easy to say you're wasting $297 a month on utilities, on repairs, on the price increase. You take those three things only. You can say
Mhm.
that easily could stretch it out to say, hey, within 10 years, you're going to get all your money back on this system in a way. Does that make
Totally.
sense, sir?
Yeah. I mean, you're balancing the value that they're getting out of it against the price. And so I always ask, hey, if you put a really high efficient, like your system, right? You've got $30,000 system in there with all kinds of mini split systems. When do you recognize the return on that investment? Oh, every month for the next 15 years. So if I'm trying to create value so they're willing to pay it, isn't it so much easier to justify the value when I match the payment against the return on that investment on a monthly
Mm,
basis for the next 15 years? Why not tie those two things together rather than saying, give me $30,000 right now, and I will slowly pay you back for the next 15 years?
that's crazy. And truthfully, on my utility bill, I could make the case because listen, put it this way, I'm only heating and cooling 200 to 300 square foot at a time.
Yeah,
On top of
exactly.
the fact the system is like 10 times more efficient.
Yeah.
Um, and so we are down to about $98 a month on that utility bill when we used to be at 475 a month or
Wow.
something like
I mean,
that.
in
Yeah.
California, that is
It,
unbelievable.
it really is. So that's crazy. So it's like I'm literally paying. It literally pays for it. So I did not use a bridge loan because nobody had it at that time. I just bought it out of my pocket. Now I'm thinking about it. I'm like, that was stupid. I should have waited till I found somebody who did that. But nonetheless, let's go on to the other part of it there, Seth, about the interest rate. So the different programs that are available. That's
Yeah,
what you
yeah.
guys call them there. Tell us a little bit about the programs and let's talk about the value. There's so much to choose from. Sometimes the salespeople. I think that's one of the reasons people are stopped because they're not sure what's better.
Totally.
Is it I hear people do delayed payments for 12 months, same as cash, or 6 months, same as cash, the monthly payment with a low interest, 0% interest for 3 years, or a 15-year 8.9 or something. Let's go over some of the best practices of which we should choose. I got my own ideas, but go ahead and tell us. Or you go because
Yeah.
it's your podcast. You tell us first. What do you think?
I will tell you my opinion about what you should do, and then I have a few opinions about what you don't do, right?
Okay.
So, what you should do is you select really two loans because you have two kinds of buyers. You have a monthly payment buyer and you have a cash buyer. Your cash buyer is probably 20-25% of your people. A cash buyer loves nothing more than interest-free money, right? 0% for 12 months is a super popular loan because guess what? Anything that's going to happen in their life is going to happen in the next 12 months. After that, it's just a repeat. I don't need to give you 24 months. You're going to get a bonus or a tax return or something like that in the next 12 months. If you're a cash buyer, you can pay it off in 12 months. So I don't need to pay for all this additional no interest time. That's really just good money after bad. If I give you 12 months, you're going to be satisfied with that. If you're not a monthly payment buyer, what you're looking for is the lowest possible monthly payment. You're thinking, here's my budget. I make this much, I spend this much, I have this much left over at the end. If you can tell me a payment that fits into that amount, I'm going to say yes. And so the most popular loans for a monthly payment buyer are a 15-year loan. And there's really two loans that are the most popular. I'll tell you why. 15 years at 12.99% is free. There is no dealer fee on it. Costs less than a credit card, right? So if you did nothing more than start converting all of your credit card usage over to a 15-year 12.99, you would save tens of thousands of dollars in credit card fees, and you would have more approvals. So that's the first part. The second part is a 15-year 9.99 is also a super popular loan. Now it does have a fee. It's got a 7.25% fee, but it's so popular because even if I'm somebody with an 800 credit score, 9.99 on an unsecured personal loan today with today's interest rates, that is not bad.
I'm just about ready to faint when I hear that. I mean, I would have went with that one in a heartbeat. I didn't even. Oh my gosh. Because I mean, seriously, when you think about how low that brings the monthly payment down, it is crazy. And 9.9 is
Barely over
certainly
1%.
certainly. And I wouldn't say. Let's put it this way, guys. You're saying it's. Would you say 7.25% is the dealer fee?
Exactly.
No, let's put
Yes.
it this way. It's really not 7.25%. I'm going to make a little bit of a case for you. I'm going to give you a little bit of a help on this one because you've already got 3% for credit cards built into everything you do. You're really
Exactly.
looking at 4.25% more just to offer this to clients. Just all you have to do is build that into your margins overall, over all the financing you do. I mean, seriously, it's a no-brainer. This to me brings this down to where there's zero reasons. Because I think a lot of people get into the thing where it's like, oh my God, if I do the 0% financing, it's going to be like 15% for 3 years or
Yeah,
whatever. And
no,
I'm like, dude, why are you doing that? Why don't you do 9.9 or 8.9 over 10 years or 9.9 over 15 years? I feel the same way there too. So
yeah.
I would say the best ability is affordability. That's that you can have that one, Seth. To say Joe Crisara said this to
I
me,
will
and
steal
it's stuck
that.
with me. Okay, just don't forget to mention my name on that one when you do it.
Uh,
The best ability you have as a salesperson is affordability. That's the one. That's really it. I always say to people because you're surprising people. Like I get all that for like 149 a month or whatever it's going to be. It's like, well, Joe, if I said I could do it that way, what would happen then? Oh my God, what's the interest rate? What if I said I give you all this money up front and it would only be 9.9% interest? And here's the thing. When you incorporate, I always tell people when you get the 9.9% interest and the monthly payment, both the principal and the 9.9% interest you're going to pay is less money than you're currently wasting. That's the key thing I tell people all the
mhm.
time, that we're not taking money out of your pocket. We're taking money that you're currently spending and using those resources on a small monthly basis to be able to afford this thing. And then you're going to have better comfort, a quieter system. Well, I'm just making your case, right? Seth, I just took over this podcast. I don't know why I did that, but
Uh,
I just like,
just
why?
reminds
Because I'm
me.
so excited about your services. Have you ever met a podcast host who's more excited about your services than me?
You're definitely at the top of the list, you know.
Thank you, thank you. Well, because that's why I can never have GoodLeap on enough, because I really think this is the thing that they definitely have to make a promise to come back again sometime in the future. Okay.
Definitely. I
Is there
have,
anything you'd like to follow up with here, Seth? How do they get a
yeah,
hold of you to make sure? Because you sound like somebody who's able to articulate this in a way that's meaningful to the. It sounds like you sounds like you're the kind of person who would work with the teams to train people. Tell us about the training that GoodLeap does to make sure the teams can get
yeah,
this together a little bit
yeah,
more.
it's a great point. So we have two types of trainings. One of them is focused towards distributors and manufacturers and their field sales reps. Um, and helping them understand financing, because a lot of these manufacturers and distributors have specialized programs. And if you're a contractor and you're listening to this and you're not aware if you have any specialized programs, it's definitely worth asking your rep, your TM, hey, do we have any financing buy downs? Do you guys have any financing programs? Because they're so underutilized and it's a lot of free money just sitting on the table that a lot of contractors are just leaving on the table. They don't pick it up. So if you're listening to this, ask your TM, ask your rep, do we have any financing buy downs or promotions? That's a huge deal. So that's on the distributor side. At the contractor levels, we do two trainings for every contractor who gets started up with us. Okay. We do an initial training, and that training is to help people understand this is how the program works. And it's to understand a little bit more about their business so that we can structure the program to the way they run their business. My goal is not to come in here and force contractors to revamp how they do things. Tell me how you do it. I'll customize my program to work with what you're doing. So that's step one, understanding your business, explaining how this works. And then we have an enrollment process. It takes about 2 weeks. On the back end of the enrollment process, we do a full training for all of the field sales reps, whether that's comfort advisors or selling techs or selling plumbers or whoever it is. We'll do full training. And that can look anything from a Zoom, where we Zoom if you have, let's say, a handful of people, or if you've got a whole room that gets together, we can fly out and come in and do an on-site training where we train everybody and show them how they do it. Because as you know, it's got to be easy and people have to understand how to do it. If it's not easy and they're not confident, they will never do it. So we just
Yeah.
have to keep it extremely simple and make it easy to use, right? So those are really the two trainings that we do, in addition to a back office training for an admin or the finance, the accounting people to help them get their money.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have the same problem that we have at Service MVP is, to have these great services, there's one thing. Getting people to use them is another thing, right?
Totally different. Yes.
People use them, that's the thing about it. And I just get one final thing, guys. If you're out there in this right now thinking about it like, man, I'm not going to add 4% to my sales price. It's already too high. And things like, I'm going to put it this way, guys. You know, what I would say is this: that when you're thinking that way, you're thinking in a scarcity mindset. You got
Mhm.
to say that I cannot. How can I offer these premium solutions that everybody would love to have? And let's put it this way: your installation team, it takes the same amount of energy to put a premium box as it does an economy box. So they're doing
Mhm.
the same effort. Why not give people the chance to get the economy box? Because there's 0% chance they're going to get that unless you offer the financing or the bridge loan, we call it, or the program that Seth has in there. And I think one other point is that you're pre-selecting stuff for your team, like that 9.9, 15%, or maybe the 8.9, 10%, 10-year loan, or that 15-year loan, it was 9.9. I love that loan like that. How important is it that the company kind of pre-selects some of these things to narrow it down for the salesperson so they don't have too much to choose from? What do you think on that?
I tell almost everybody, you don't need more than 3 or 4 loans max. You don't, I mean, we have 80 loans on our rate sheet. It's so confusing to people. You need 3 loans, right? You probably need a 12-month no interest, which only has about a 5.5% fee. You need a long-term loan, like a 15-year loan, like a 9.99. And then you probably want like a 5-year loan for your repairs, because you can finance anything over $1,000. So if I'm financing, let's say, a coil replacement at $2,000, maybe I'm not going to finance that for 15 years. But I put that on a 5-year note and I'm still only looking at $70 a month or so. So you need 3 loans. That's really all it comes down to.
So a couple loans for the big purchases and a smaller loan for the a shorter term loan for
Yeah.
the repair purchases. You know what? That's exactly what I teach. I teach people. I mean, I didn't know how aligned you guys were with us, because I think the same thing. I think we gotta have some stuff for like some delayed payment stuff you could have, as well
Uh,
as the 5-year loan, and then you go to the 10 and 15-year, and you
mm,
got it there. I think that's a great way of going. This way, everybody in the team can anticipate, because you can start getting into like that evaporator coil repair. It's not just that. You got the refrigerant, you got the dryers, you got to, seal the ductwork. All that stuff's going to be like, 5,500 or $7,000
yeah.
for all that stuff. I mean, again, people are going to be shocked when you go to them like, hey, right now we have a fracture in your refrigerant system. It's going to be 7,500. Oh my gosh, forget it. I'm going to call somebody else. So if you don't have it that way, the next thing that's going to come out of a consumer's mouth is, I got to shop around.
Yeah.
If you do it the way you're saying it, it's going to be like, yeah, it's $92 a month for all that. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and get it done. So it's just like that. Seth, how can people get a hold of you specifically?
Yeah.
But I always say good podcast starts on time, which I think this one did. But we got to make sure it kind of ends. A great one
And
ends
on
on
time.
time, as they
Yeah.
say.
You can shoot me an email. So my email is Sure. So just SURE, my first initial and then my last name, Sure at GoodLeap, GOODLEAP.com. So Sure at GoodLeap.
That's a really good one. I love it. SURE at
Yeah.
goodleap.com. That's a way to get a hold of Seth. And Seth, thank you so much. Any final thoughts and words you have for contractors before we depart here?
I would just say you're not selling HVAC systems, you're selling affordability, right? People will buy the best they can afford. And typically, they're going to do whatever is easiest. So if you make it easy and you make it affordable, you're going to close a lot of sales.
Just one other thing. Tell us the kind of feeling you get when you see people report back to you about the kind of deals they write and things like that. Do you get contractor feedback from you about the difference it's made in their life?
Can I share one really quick story? I know we're up against the time.
Go ahead. Go ahead. No, take your time. Go ahead.
So this was a gratifying experience for me, right? So several years ago, this is 3 to 4 years, I went out to train a large contractor down in Theodore, Alabama. Some people probably know who that is because it's not a huge area and this was a big contractor. But in any case, I went in there, was training the sales manager, and he was receptive. We trained the team. His sales at that time were something like 1.7 million a year, which in Alabama he felt really good about. Okay. I saw him a year and a half later at a conference event. And at that event, he was getting called onto the stage to receive an award because he had broken the $5 million mark in annual sales, which, again, in rural Alabama, that's a massive number, $5 million in residential sales. So I was at dinner that night and I was sitting there drinking. He came up, we're talking to this group, and he says, hey, everybody here, I want you to listen to everything this guy has to say because he changed my life. When he came out and trained me, it took me from a $1.5 million salesperson to an over $5 million salesperson. And all I changed was exactly what he told me in terms of how to set up my financing with my selling process. So I thought that was an amazing experience. And, you have experiences like that all the time where people tell you, you see the growth in their business. It's really gratifying. We're both in a fortunate situation to where we get to help people, and you get to see people grow after you help them, and it's really gratifying. It's fun to see the change.
Man, if I was over there right now, I'd give you a big hug. That's amazing. Thank you so much for coming on here, Seth. It's been definitely just one of the shortest feeling pod. I feel like we go on for hours. I could talk to you for hours. Let's promise you'll do it again with me sometime when you
I
got
would
some
love to. Yeah,
new things to
definitely.
share. Maybe we could just do
Yeah.
contractor affordability stories. It would be a good little thing we could do next time. You up for that?
I would love it. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Let's do it again, Seth. Have a great one. We'll talk to you next time. Have a great one.
Okay, bye-bye.